Shavua Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Pesachim. We are up to Perik Chet, Mishnah Bet. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilun Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana, Aranbayev, and Eliyahu ben Burchai Israelov, Menuchatam beGan Eden, Amen. This Mishnah discusses cases in which one person authorized another person to buy an animal for a Pesach offering and register him on it, but it was unclear what kind of animal he wanted. This raises the question as to which animal may be used for his offering, since the registration requires his consent. The Mishnah begins, if one said to his servant, go out and slaughter the Pesach offering for me, but he did not specify if he wanted a kid or a lamb, because we know the Torah says in Sefer Shemot chapter 12 pasuk 5, a Pesach offering may be either a kid, meaning a young goat, or a lamb, a young sheep, that is less than 1 year old. The law is like this. Shachat gedi yochal. If the servant slaughtered a kid, a young goat, the master may eat from it. Shachat tale yochal. And if the servant slaughtered a lamb, a young sheep, the master may eat from it, because we assume that the master left it up to the servant to decide what type of animal to use. Even if the master always chose a lamb in the previous years and the servant chose a kid, or vice versa, since the master did not specify this time, we assume that he agrees to let the servant choose for him. Shachat gedi v'taleh. If the servant slaughtered both a kid and a lamb, yochal min harishon, the master eats from the first one that was slaughtered, that was slaughtered first, because we assume that the master does not care if his offering is a kid or a lamb. Therefore, the first one slaughtered was valid and the second one is invalid, since the master already fulfilled his obligation with the first one. Now, the Gemara explains that the Mishnah refers to a case of a king and queen who sent their servant to bring a Pesach on their behalf. Since fine foods are always available to them, they are not particular if the offering is a kid or a lamb, and they therefore accept whichever offering was slaughtered first. However, in the case of a regular person whose servant slaughtered both animals, both offerings are invalid, because such a person may specifically want a kid or lamb. Since the master relied on the servant to choose for him, but the servant did not choose, rather he slaughtered one of each kind, it turns out that the master was not registered on either one. That is how the Rav explains the Mishnah in his second explanation. The Mishnah now discusses a case in which the master did make clear whether he wanted a kid or a lamb, but the servant forgot. Shachach ma amar lo rabo. If the master did specify which animal he wanted, but the servant forgot what his master told him, ketzad yaseh. What should the servant do? Yishchat tale ugdi v'yomar. He should acquire and slaughter both a lamb and a kid, and say the following before they are slaughtered: Im gedi amar li rabbi, gedi shelo v'tale sheli. If my master told me to bring a kid, let the kid be a Pesach offering for him, and the lamb a Pesach offering for me. And if my master told me to bring a lamb, let the lamb be a Pesach offering for him, and the kid a Pesach offering for me. The servant then goes back to the master and finds out which one he specified. The master eats from that animal and the servant eats from the other one. However, if his master also forgot what he told the servant, and both animals have already been slaughtered, both animals must go out to the place of burning, meaning the place outside the temple courtyard where disqualified offerings are burned, because we do not know which of the animals is the master's offering and which is the servant's, and a person may not eat from an offering on which he is not registered, and a Pesach offering that cannot be eaten is burned. Ufturin milasot Pesach sheni, but they are exempt from making the second Pesach offering because they have fulfilled their Pesach obligation with these offerings, even though they did not eat from them. And the commentaries explain a person who was unable to fulfill his Pesach obligation on the 14th of Nisan brings a Pesach offering a month later on the 14th of Iyar. This makeup offering is called the second Pesach offering. In this case, however, both the master and the servant fulfilled their Pesach obligations, since the owner specified which one he wanted and is therefore registered on that animal and the servant on the other. Therefore, although we do not know who was registered on which animal, each one definitely had a Pesach offering on which he was registered, offered on his behalf. As long as a person's Pesach was offered, he has fulfilled his obligation, even if he did not eat from it, as the Gemara discusses on page 78, B in Masechet Pesachim. And that is the end of Mishnah Bet. Mishnah Gimel continues to discuss the laws of registering on a Pesach offering. Ha'omer lebanav, if one who is going to Yerushalayim to bring his Pesach offering says to his sons, who will be arriving in Yerushalayim after the offering is slaughtered, but in time to eat from the offering, Hareini shochet the Pesach al mi she'aleh mikem rishon Yerushalayim, I will slaughter the Pesach offering for the first one of you to go up to Yerushalayim. The law is like this. Kevan shechnisa rishon rosho verubo, as soon as the first son put his head and most of his body into the city, this is considered entering the city, zacha bechenkom zaket echavimo, he acquires his portion in the Pesach offering and acquires portions for his brothers along with him. Because when the father said he will slaughter for the son who comes first, he did not mean to register only him. Rather, he meant that that son would be the head of the group, as the Rav explains from the Gemara. Now, the commentaries explain the father wanted his sons to come to Yerushalayim quickly because he wanted them to be zealous in their performance of mitzvot. He therefore appointed the son who arrives first as the leader who picks a portion for himself first and gives out other portions to his brothers. However, he indeed slaughtered it with all his children in mind. The Mishnah now discusses how many people may register on one Pesach offering. Le'olam nimnin alav, any amount of people can register on a Pesach offering. Ad shebo kazait lekol echad ve'echad, as long as there is at least a olive's volume of meat, kazait in the animal, for each and every one of them, because this is the minimum amount of meat one must eat to fulfill the mitzvah of eating the Pesach offering. Now the Mishnah discusses the latest time one can register on a Pesach offering or withdraw from one offering in order to register on a different one. Nimnin u'moshchin etiden mimenu ad shishachet. People can register on a Pesach offering and withdraw from it until it is slaughtered. Now we learned this from the Pasuk in Sefer Shemot, chapter 12, Pasuk 4. According to the number of people shall you be counted, tachosu, on the lamb. The word tachosu can also be interpreted to mean you shall slaughter, meaning the Torah is teaching that the registration process must take place before the slaughtering. The law about withdrawing is learned from the earlier part of the Pasuk as explained by the Gemara. However, Rabbi Shimon disagrees. Rabbi Shimon omer, ad she'yizrok alav et adam, one may withdraw from a Pesach offering even after it is slaughtered until the Kohen throws the blood onto the altar on his behalf. According to Rabbi Shimon, the verse teaches that one may withdraw as long as the sacrificial service is still being performed. Therefore, one may withdraw until the blood is thrown on the altar, since that is the last step of the sacrificial service. However, Rabbi Shimon agrees that one must register before the offering is slaughtered. He's only discussing the withdrawal. And the Rav does tell us, Rabbi Shimon, the halacha does not follow the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. And that is the Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.